Before we dive into the chilling depths of a story so dark it might just keep you awake at night, I have a small favor to ask. If you find yourself captivated by the suspense, if your heart races with every twist and turn, and if you crave more tales that push the boundaries of fear, then please consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing the notification bell. Your support means the world and allows me to bring more spine-tingling narratives to life. Now, brace yourselves, for the shadows of Willow Creek are about to awaken. The scent of pine and damp earth usually brought a sense of peace to Willow Creek, a quaint, picturesque town nestled deep in the heart of rural Oregon. Its charm lay in its stillness, its unhurried pace, and the comforting predictability of its seasons. Towering Douglas firs stood sentinel around its edges, their ancient boughs whispering secrets to the wind, while the gentle murmur of the Willow Creek itself, which gave the town its name, provided a constant, soothing soundtrack. But on that crisp autumn morning, the usual tranquility was shattered, replaced by a silence far more sinister than any scream, a silence that hummed with unspeakable dread. Detective Isabella Izzy Rossi, a woman whose sharp intellect was often masked by a quiet demeanor and a perpetual weary sigh, stood at the edge of the crime scene. The red and white tape, usually reserved for traffic accidents or fallen trees, flapped like a frantic warning flag against the biting wind, a stark contrast to the vibrant, decaying leaves carpeting the forest floor. Izzy had come to Willow Creek 2 years prior, a self-imposed exile. The promise of quiet, of routine traffic stops and the occasional lost cat, had been a siren song she couldn't resist after a particularly gruesome urban case in Portland had gnawed at her soul, leaving behind scars that still throbbed in the quiet of the night. Now, the past she thought she'd escaped seemed to be clawing its way back, manifest in the still, pale form before her. Her sanctuary had been breached, its peaceful facade ripped away. The victim, a vibrant young woman named Sarah Jenkins, lay motionless beneath the skeletal branches of an ancient oak, its gnarled roots resembling skeletal fingers clutching at the soil. Sarah, known for her sunny disposition, her cascade of fiery red hair, and her whimsical oil paintings that adorned the walls of the local coffee shop, had been an embodiment of Willow Creek's innocent spirit. She painted landscapes that captured the town's soul, portraits that brought out the best in its people. Now her wide, unseeing eyes stared blankly at the indifferent, gray sky, reflecting a terrifying last moment no one could ever imagine happening in their sleepy haven. What was truly disturbing wasn't just the sheer brutality of the act, a life undeniably taken, but the meticulous, almost ritualistic arrangement of her body. There was a single, pristine white lily placed delicately on her chest, its petals unnaturally white against her skin. Her hands, usually covered in paint, were crossed serenely over her abdomen. The ground around her, despite being in a forest, showed no signs of struggle. No torn clothes, no scuffed shoes, no disturbed earth to suggest a fight for life. It was as if the killer hadn't just taken a life, but had painted a macabre masterpiece, posing their subject with grotesque reverence. Every detail, every placement screamed of calculated artistry. Willow Creek had never seen anything like it. Its innocence was bleeding out, slowly, painfully, into the cold, unforgiving earth. Any initial thoughts, Izzy? Sheriff Ben Carter's voice was rough, edged with a disbelief he couldn't quite hide. Ben, a man whose face was etched with years of sun and small-town worries, his once thick brown hair now a thinning gray, had been sheriff for 20 years. He knew every resident, every hidden trail, every family secret. This was beyond his scope, beyond Willow Creek's understanding. He had seen bar fights, petty theft, even a tragic hunting accident, but never this. This felt alien, a poison seeping in from somewhere else. Izzy knelt, careful not to disturb anything, her eyes sweeping over every detail, every fallen leaf, every blade of grass. Her gaze was methodical, trained by years of deciphering death's grim language. Too clean, Ben. Way too clean. No defensive wounds, no struggle. Whoever did this, they were either known to her or they took her completely by surprise, or she wasn't alive when she got here. She pointed to the undisturbed leaves around Sarah's feet. See? Not a single leaf out of place from a scuffle. The killer didn't just kill her. they presented her. And the lily, always the lily. Dr. Eleanor Vance, the county's forensic pathologist, a woman whose sharp wit and no-nonsense attitude made her an invaluable asset, nodded grimly. She was already at work, a quiet whirlwind of efficiency, meticulously documenting the scene with her camera and tools. Preliminary suggests strangulation. Izzy. Precise, powerful, and quick. No signs of sexual assault, which is unusual for this kind of display. This isn't a crime of passion. Unusual or a message? Izzy murmured, standing up, her gaze fixed on the pristine white lily. Felt like a taunt, a symbol of mock purity. A signature. Our killer wants us to know this was deliberate. The first few days were a blur of activity, a frantic, almost desperate attempt to find answers. The town's residents oscillated between profound shock, outright fear, and a burning outrage. Sarah's parents, the Jenkins, were inconsolable, their grief a raw, public wound that bled openly. Friends spoke of Sarah's kind nature, her infectious laugh, her dreams of opening an art gallery in the renovated old mill. No enemies, no shady connections, just a vibrant young woman, extinguished without a trace of motive, leaving behind a gaping hole in the small community. Mark Davies, Sarah's ex-boyfriend, was an immediate, albeit obvious, suspect. He had a history of possessiveness, and they'd had a particularly nasty public breakup a few months prior, overheard by half the town at the annual fall festival. Mark, a burly mechanic with grease perpetually under his fingernails and a temper as quick as his wrench, had a rock-solid alibi, confirmed by multiple witnesses at a poker game in a neighboring town, 20 miles away. He broke down in Izzy's office, his tears genuine, his anger at the killer palpable. He loved Sarah, even after the breakup, in his own possessive way. Another lead led them to Silas Thorne, a reclusive old man who lived in a dilapidated cabin on the outskirts of town, often muttering to himself and collecting strange trinkets from the woods. He was Willow Creek's resident boogeyman, the subject of campfire stories for generations of children. Izzy and Ben paid him a visit, finding him harmless, if a bit eccentric and smelling faintly of stale pipe tobacco and pine needles. His hands, gnarled with age and arthritis, trembled too much to have committed such a precise act of violence. He rambled about spirits and ancient trees, but offered no useful information beyond a vague warning about the darkness rising from the earth. The full autopsy report from Dr. Vance confirmed Izzy's initial suspicions and added a chilling new layer to the mystery. Time of death puts it between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., roughly matching the last time she was seen leaving the diner after meeting a friend. Cause of death, as suspected, manual strangulation. No defensive wounds, Izzy, none at all. And here's the kicker. I found traces of a sedative in her system. Just enough to render her unconscious, completely incapacitated, but not enough to kill her on its own. She was out cold before the attack even began. So, no struggle because she was already out, Izzy said, tapping her pen on a notepad, the pieces of the puzzle starting to form a terrifying picture. That explains the pristine crime scene. Our killer is methodical, careful. They don't want to fight. They want control. Absolute control. And the lily. Any specific significance there? Dr. Vance. Dr. Vance shrugged, pushing her spectacles up her nose. Symbolism varies. Purity, beauty, death, sympathy, innocence. Could be anything the killer projects onto it. But it's undeniably deliberate. This killer isn't just dumping a body. They're making a statement. A very personal, very chilling statement. The news of Sarah Jenkins' murder spread through Willow Creek like a creeping, suffocating fog. Shopkeepers pulled their shades down earlier, leaving Main Street eerily dark after sunset. Children, usually running wild in the autumn air, were kept indoors, their laughter replaced by the nervous murmurs of their parents. Neighbors who had once waved cheerfully now eyed each other with suspicion, wondering who among them harbored such unimaginable darkness. The town's once tight-knit fabric, woven by generations of shared lives, began to fray, threatening to unravel completely. Local businesses suffered as people stayed home, afraid to venture out after dark. Sheriff Carter, usually calm and composed, began to show the strain, his once hearty laugh replaced by nervous coughs. His phone rang incessantly with calls from worried citizens, local politicians, and even the regional media. The local paper, the Willow Creek Gazette, usually filled with bake sale announcements and high school football scores, now ran grim headlines that screamed of terror and uncertainty. Izzy felt a chilling familiarity. The meticulousness, the cold calculation, the signature, it all echoed fragments of the urban case that had driven her to this quiet town. A case of a killer who reveled in presentation, who treated his victims not as people, but as props in his sick narrative, a grand, horrifying tableau. She pushed the memory away, a cold knot forming in her stomach. Couldn't be. This was Willow Creek, not Portland. This was supposed to be her escape, her refuge. Then, just as the initial wave of panic began to subside slightly, lulling the town into a false sense of security, the unimaginable happened again. 2 weeks after Sarah Jenkins' body was found, the quiet was shattered once more. This time, the victim was Michael Thompson, a popular high school football star, known for his infectious grin, his easy charm, and his dreams of a college scholarship. He was the golden boy of Willow Creek High, a symbol of youthful promise and achievement. His body was discovered by a pair of hikers near the old covered bridge, a local landmark beloved for its rustic charm, its weathered wooden beams, and its whispered legends of old lovers and ghostly sightings. Izzy arrived at the scene, her heart sinking even before she saw him. The air was thick with a familiar, sickening dread. The same chilling tableau. Michael lay on his back, his strong, athletic body posed with an almost delicate precision that seemed grotesque. His eyes, like Sarah's, stared blankly into the overcast sky, frozen in a silent scream. And on his chest, a single pristine white lily, placed with the same unnerving care. "God damn it," Sheriff Carter whispered, his face pale and drawn, his voice hoarse. "Not again. Not Michael." Izzy knelt, a grim certainty settling over her. The lack of struggle, the identical signature. It was no longer a random act or a lone, desperate crime of passion. This was a pattern. This was a serial killer, methodical and terrifying, operating with impunity in their small, unsuspecting town. The monster wasn't just passing through. It was living among them. The fear in Willow Creek wasn't a creeping fog anymore. It was a screaming gale, a palpable, suffocating force. Schools closed early, parents refusing to send their children. Stores, already struggling, became ghost towns. The local community center, usually buzzing with activity, stood eerily silent. The national media, initially dismissing Willow Creek as a local oddity, descended with a vengeance, their cameras and microphones thrust into the faces of terrified residents, turning private grief into public spectacle. Willow Creek, once a symbol of idyllic Americana, was now a chilling headline, a breeding ground for unspeakable horror, its name synonymous with terror. Izzy felt a surge of cold resolve, hardening her spine. This wasn't just a case. It was a declaration of war on everything this town stood for, on its very soul. She knew with absolute certainty that the killer was local or deeply familiar with Willow Creek. This wasn't some drifter passing through, randomly selecting victims. This was someone who understood the town's rhythm, its hidden nooks, its fragile sense of community. Someone who was now, perhaps, watching them, enjoying the terror they had sown, enjoying the unraveling of everything Izzy had sought refuge in. The whispers of Willow Creek had turned into screams, and Izzy knew with a chilling certainty that this was just the beginning. The serpent had found its way into their garden, and its shadow was only just beginning to fall. She had to stop it before Willow Creek was consumed entirely. The serpent's shadow had indeed fallen, long and cold, across Willow Creek, chilling it to its core. The double murder had transformed the town from a place of quiet comfort into a crucible of fear and paranoia. Every glance exchanged between neighbors held a flicker of suspicion, a silent question. "Is it you? Could it be you?" Every rustle in the dry autumn leaves sounded like a lurking predator. Every shadow held a monstrous shape. The local diner, the Creekside Diner, once the bustling hub of morning gossip and friendly banter, now hummed with hushed, anxious whispers, the clinking of coffee cups sounding unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence. Izzy and Sheriff Carter found themselves under immense, unrelenting pressure. State police had arrived, a wave of professional uniforms and sophisticated equipment, but also a subtle air of condescension towards the small-town department, a barely concealed dismissal of their capabilities. Detective Reynolds, a sharp-edged, ambitious detective from the State Major Crimes Unit, with his slicked-back hair and designer suits, took over the lead, much to Carter's thinly veiled resentment and Izzy's quiet, pragmatic acceptance. Reynolds clearly saw Willow Creek as a backwater, and its police force as amateurs out of their depth. Two victims, Detective Rossi, Reynolds had stated, tapping a pen against a pristine file, his tone clipped and efficient. Sarah Jenkins, Michael Thompson. No direct connection established, beyond geographical proximity and the obvious method and signature. What's your theory locally? Beyond the obvious serial killer angle. He almost sneered at the last part, as if the concept of a serial killer was too sophisticated for Willow Creek. Izzy bristled slightly at the implied doubt but kept her voice even, her gaze steady. The signature is too precise, Reynolds. The sedative, the lack of struggle, the lily, the meticulous posing. This isn't random. This killer isn't just taking lives. They're making a statement, a macabre performance, and they're meticulous, almost artistic. They know what they're doing. Artistic, Reynolds scoffed, a sneer playing on his lips. More like a psychopath with a fetish for lilies. We're looking for a lone wolf, likely male, probably mid-20s to late 40s, with a history of isolation or antisocial behavior. Someone who knows the local area well enough to move unseen, and who probably lives within a 20-mile radius. We're interviewing every paroled offender, every person of interest with a history of violence in this county. While Reynolds focused on the broad psychological profile and conventional leads, Izzy delved deeper into the victims' lives, searching for any hidden connections, any shared threads that weren't immediately apparent. Sarah Jenkins, the free-spirited artist, and Michael Thompson, the charismatic athlete. On the surface, two entirely different individuals, from different social circles with different aspirations. Yet, they shared a commonality. They were both symbols of Willow Creek's youth, its future, its vibrant energy, its very public face. Was the killer targeting hope? Or was it something else? Something more subtle, more insidious? Dr. Vance's latest autopsy reports offered little new forensic evidence. The killer was too careful, but confirmed the chilling consistency. Both victims had been sedated with the same substance, a potent tranquilizer, a specific benzodiazepine, not readily available over the counter. This suggested the killer had access to medical supplies, or perhaps worked in a field where such drugs were common. A veterinarian, a nurse, a pharmacist, a researcher, even a legitimate drug dealer with high-grade pharmaceuticals? The list was long and terrifyingly diverse in a town of only 5,000 residents, but it gave them a starting point for specialized interviews. Izzy spent long, solitary nights poring over maps of Willow Creek, marking the locations of the bodies, the victims' homes, their frequented spots. She noticed a subtle, unsettling pattern. Both crime scenes were in areas of natural beauty, slightly secluded, but well known to locals. The ancient oak where Sarah was found, the covered bridge where Michael lay, both were picturesque spots, almost postcard-worthy, places where locals often went for quiet contemplation or romantic strolls. It fueled her theory that the killer was not just familiar with Willow Creek, but had a twisted, almost possessive appreciation for its aesthetic, using its beauty as a stage for his horrific acts. Sheriff Carter, meanwhile, was grappling with the town's growing, almost hysterical fear. Anonymous tips flooded the station, most of them baseless accusations fueled by paranoia and old grudges. He even had to deal with angry mobs forming outside the station, their faces contorted with fear and rage, demanding answers, demanding justice, demanding a return to the peace they had lost. He looked 10 years older in 2 weeks, his once hearty laugh replaced by nervous coughs and a perpetual frown. "I've never seen anything like this, Izzy," he confessed one evening, running a hand over his thinning hair, his voice heavy with despair. "This town is tearing itself apart. Everyone's a suspect. Everyone's terrified. I can barely sleep." Izzy understood. She remembered the faces from her old case, the way trust had eroded, leaving behind only fear, bitterness, and suspicion, a cancerous growth on the community. She wouldn't let that happen here. She refused. Willow Creek, for all its quiet flaws, was her home now. Her breakthrough came not from grand forensics, but from a mundane, almost overlooked detail. While reviewing Sarah Jenkins' social media presence, a laborious task of sifting through years of posts, Izzy noticed a series of old photographs from a local historical event. One, in particular, caught her eye. A group photo from a high school art club trip to the Willow Creek Nature Preserve, taken 5 years ago during the town's centennial celebrations. Sarah was in it, laughing, her red hair a vibrant splash in the muted tones of the forest. And standing a few feet away, awkwardly at the edge of the frame, was a younger Michael Thompson, then a freshman visiting a friend in the club. He looked gangly, a bit out of place, but undeniably present. "Ben Reynolds," Izzy called, excitement thrumming through her, a rare spark in the darkness. They did know each other. Not closely, not as friends, but they were at the same event. And it was at the Willow Creek Nature Preserve. It's a connection, however slight, however indirect. "It's something," Reynolds scoffed again, looking up from his laptop with a dismissive wave of his hand. "A high school field trip? 5 years ago? Detective Rossi, that's a stretch. Lots of people go to the nature preserve. This could just be a coincidence of small-town life." "But it's a connection," Izzy insisted, her voice firm, unwavering. "It shows they moved in vaguely overlapping circles. What if the killer isn't targeting who they are as individuals now, but where they were or what they represented at that specific moment in time? What if it's not about their present lives, but a specific event in Willow Creek's past?" She immediately began to dig into the Nature Preserve's archives. Old visitor logs, event schedules, even local news articles from that specific period 5 years ago, during the town's centennial celebrations. It was a painstaking, almost desperate search, for the Nature Preserve was a popular spot. Thousands of people visited over the years. But Izzy focused on that particular time. Days turned into nights, fueled by stale coffee, instant noodles, and a growing sense of urgency that gnawed at her. The town was a powder keg, its fuse burning rapidly, and Izzy felt the clock ticking relentlessly. The media had dubbed the killer the Willow Creek Weaver, for the way they seemed to weave victims into their macabre tapestry, a twisted artist of death. Then the third body was discovered. This time, the victim was Martha Gable, a beloved retired schoolteacher, known for her immaculate rose garden, her tireless volunteer work at the local library, and her unwavering dedication to Willow Creek's history. Her discovery sent a shockwave that transcended age and social circles. Martha was an elder, a cornerstone of the community, a living archive of Willow Creek's past. If even she wasn't safe, then truly no one was. The last vestiges of security in Willow Creek crumbled. Her body was found in her own meticulously tended rose garden, surrounded by the vibrant, late-season blooms she loved, their thorny stems reaching up like silent accusers. The same serene pose, the same pristine white lily on her chest, the same chilling lack of struggle, confirming the sedative. But this time there was an added, horrifying detail. Tucked carefully into the folds of her dress, almost hidden by the lily, was a small, antique silver locket. It was open, but empty, its delicate chain gleaming dully in the morning light. Izzy felt a cold dread spread through her, more profound than before. "He's escalating," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the chatter of responding officers, the sharp clicks of Dr. Vance's camera. "He's not just killing, he's communicating." The locket, Ben. It's a new element, personal touch, a message. Reynolds, for once, was speechless. his usual arrogance replaced by a flash of genuine horror. The professional facade crumbled slightly, revealing a raw human fear. A schoolteacher. This changes everything. It's not just about youth anymore. It's about who? What connects them now? Dr. Vance confirmed the sedative once more, identical to the previous two, a signature as clear as a fingerprint. And the locket, she said, holding it up carefully with gloved hands, examining it under a magnifying glass. It's old, sterling silver. No fingerprints, of course, but it's clean, almost polished, as if it was placed there with reverence or perhaps with a twisted sense of sentimentality. Izzy immediately saw the deeper connection. Sarah, the artist, representing the town's future creativity. Michael, the athlete, representing its future strength and potential. Martha, the teacher, the historian, representing the very heart of the town's past, its wisdom, its memory. And all of them, she now realized with a terrifying clarity, had been present at significant public events in the town's history, not just the nature preserve trip. Martha, a lifelong resident and local historian, would have been at countless such events. The locket, however, was a new, deeply personal touch. Izzy felt a sudden, sharp intuition. The empty locket wasn't just a prop. It was a clue, a symbol of something missing, something personal to the killer. A void. That night, alone in her office, the only sound the hum of the fluorescent lights and the distant wail of a coyote, Izzy stared at the crime board. Photos of the 3 victims were pinned up, connected by red strings of circumstantial evidence. Sarah, Michael, Martha. The lily, the sedative, the posing, the beautiful yet horrifying stage. And now the empty locket. Suddenly, a memory resurfaced, unbidden and sharp, from her old, haunting case in Portland. A detail she had tried to bury deep within her subconscious. Her previous killer had also used symbolic objects, not as gifts, but as taunts, as pieces of a personal, twisted narrative that only he understood. He saw his victims not as individuals, but as fulfilling roles in his elaborate fantasy. A sick play. She grabbed a large, detailed map of Willow Creek and began marking every significant public event from the past decade. The annual Fall Festival, the Historical Society's grand reopening, the high school graduation ceremonies, the town's centennial celebration, the Christmas tree lighting, every single public gathering she could find recorded. She started cross-referencing these events with the victims' known histories, their public appearances, their roles in the community. It was a tedious, seemingly impossible task, a desperate search for a needle in a haystack of public records. But something in the killer's meticulousness, his dark artistry, told her there was a pattern, a hidden logic, a meticulously crafted narrative behind these murders. Her eyes fell on a small, faded newspaper clipping from exactly 5 years ago, during the centennial celebrations. Willow Creek High School celebrates centennial with community time capsule ceremony. There, in a blurry group photo of townsfolk gathered around a newly buried time capsule, a small brass plaque marking its spot, were Sarah Jenkins, a vibrant high school student, and Michael Thompson, a gangly freshman who had won an essay contest about the town's future. And in the very front, beaming proudly as she led the ceremony, her face alight with civic pride, was Martha Gable, the head of the Historical Society. All 3 victims in one single photograph. All 3, present at the burial of a time capsule, a repository of memories, of hopes, of the town's identity, buried to be opened 50 years hence. And the locket, an empty vessel, a missing piece, a symbol of something lost. Izzy stared at the clipping, a cold wave of terrifying realization washing over her, making the hairs on her arms stand on end. It wasn't just a common event. It was a time capsule, a monument to the town's shared past and its collective future. The serpent's shadow was not just random terror. It was purposeful. It was personal. And it was intricately woven into the very fabric of Willow Creek's past. The killer was not just taking lives. They were systematically erasing or distorting the town's history, one symbolic victim at a time, to make a point, to fulfill a twisted vision. The real terror, Izzy realized, was that the killer wasn't just in Willow Creek. They were Willow Creek. They were a part of its forgotten narrative, its unacknowledged history. And they were just getting started. The final act of their macabre play was yet to come. The discovery of the time capsule connection sent a jolt of terrifying clarity through Izzy. Reynolds, initially skeptical, his face a mask of disbelief and grudging respect, could no longer deny the chilling pattern. 3 victims, from vastly different walks of life, all present at the Willow Creek Centennial Time Capsule ceremony 5 years ago. It was too precise to be coincidence, too specific to be random. The sedative points to someone with medical access, Izzy explained, pacing their makeshift incident room at the police station. The air thick with the smell of stale coffee and nervous energy. The meticulousness, the artistic posing, the local knowledge. To someone who knows this town inside out. Every back road, every hidden path, every local's routine. And the time capsule. It suggests a personal connection to Willow Creek's past, perhaps even a deep-seated grievance related to it. A feeling of being forgotten or wronged by that past. Sheriff Carter's eyes were wide with a mix of dawning horror and profound understanding. He remembered the ceremony vividly. The time capsule. It was my father's project, mostly. He was big on local history, wanted to leave a legacy for the town. And Martha Gable was the driving force behind it, meticulously collecting all the items, getting the kids involved, documenting everything. She loved that project. He paused, a new thought forming. My father would have known everyone who was intimately involved. Exactly? Izzy pressed, her mind racing, connecting the dots. Sarah represented the artistic future, Michael the athletic promise and the town's youth, Martha the historical heart and wisdom. What if the killer feels something was stolen from them, or that the town's past, as celebrated and documented in that time capsule, is a lie, a fabricated history that excluded them? They immediately shifted their focus. A comprehensive list was compiled of everyone who attended, spoke at, contributed to, or was even peripherally involved in the time capsule ceremony. It was a long list, full of names familiar to Carter and daunting to Izzy, but now it was their primary suspect.